Sure,
Yes,
sure.
okay. This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us songwriter David Rovics. How are you, David?
Great. Good to be with you.
Likewise. You are so prolific. Do you know how many songs you wrote?
I actually haven't counted lately. I think it's over 1,000 by now, though.
That's what I thought. Yes, I usually try to listen to as many as I can, but there's no way.
It would
And
take you a while.
yes, 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 it will. And I will go through them because I'm enjoying them so much. Okay, recently there was a insurrection act, right? And then uh more what was the other one? The morning something there. I was just morning what song of the morning song or what was that the one that you uploaded like a couple of days ago. It had morning in it. The
Oh, last morning, with
last
last
morning.
morning.
Yes,
It's yeah, the album is called Song for Tomorrow.
yes, yes, yes. Okay, let's talk about your inspiration. Have you always thought that, I have you always thought like what's actually happening before you and then you wrote it into song, or were you a musical at first and then you applied what you are learning into your song? Which came first?
Well, I was raised by musicians, so I guess the music came first. But my father is also a composer, so the idea of sort of writing music was kind of with me from an early age. But I was went to a summer camp when I was 12, and that's where I was first exposed to music that was kind of part of a social movement, and that told the story that the movement was trying to tell, which in this case was the movement against nuclear power and nuclear weapons.
Mhm.
And in the late 70s and early 80s, it was a big movement in the U.S. and a lot of other countries, and um, that was my introduction to sort of political statements through music and how powerful it could be as a medium. And I didn't start writing songs right away, but that was the first exposure for me. And I started writing songs a few years later.
Did you write poetry then before you wrote songs?
Uh, no, I started writing songs first. I think the first kind of writing I ever really did much of was writing songs. But
Mm.
there's a lot of I also experimented with poetry, but I was more interested in writing, things that you could sing, poems you could sing.
Mhm. And your melodies are very unique. Are they derived from folk?
I've always sort of found that you have to keep on experimenting with different instruments and different musical styles in order to keep on writing interesting melodies. I think there's a lot more lyrics in my head than there are melodies, and maybe there's more stories in the world than there are chord progressions for them, I think. So I think we're often it's a sort of a restrictive kind of form of expression. You only have 3 minutes, and you have to have verses and choruses, and there's the possibility for repetition is pretty huge. So I've often found like just playing with different tunings, different instruments, and lately playing with AI to consult the AI platforms about coming up with good music. I've had a lot of luck with that, with coming up with more interesting music with the help of AI. I still write all the lyrics because I don't find AI writes very good lyrics, but AI sure makes some great music
Mm.
if you know how to work with it. You
Mhm.
have to already be an artist in the first place to make good art with AI. I think generally it won't make it itself, but if you're guiding it and you know what you're looking for and you know when it's done, and you're giving it good prompts, then whether you're a musician or a visual artist or a filmmaker, whatever else, there's probably an AI platform that can help you with your work and make it even more interesting. Yeah,
And it makes it complete faster too. You have the you know where you want to go, but it gets you there a lot faster.
a lot faster. Yeah, I think you don't lose anything in terms of quality, but you gain speed tremendously. Yeah.
So you could get, even be more prolific than you already are.
That's why I've been writing so many more songs over the past year,
Mhm.
because of the help that I'm getting from my AI band who is working 24/7.
When you research topics, do you research topics? Do you talk with people about a lot of these things that you're protesting about, or yeah, do you actually do you visit
Mm,
the locations and then because it so sounds so so real as if you're there. So how do you
yeah,
manage all
thank
that?
you. I mean, I do a lot of traveling, so I'm writing a lot about places I've been to. But then, but I also write a lot about places I've never been to, and I definitely, especially for those songs, and also for songs about history, that I wasn't, that happened long before I was born. For those kinds of songs, I'm very much relying on research, and I definitely use a lot of chatbots for that these days, but I've also been a big reader of Wikipedia over the decades, and I often, end up actually reading an entire book before writing a song about something, depending. But a lot of the songs are written about stories that I heard while traveling. So even if they're like songs about history, it's a bit of history that I just never ran across until I happened to be in some part of the world where the history happened, and that's when I hear about it.
Mhm.
That's yeah, that's commonly how it is for me.
It seems as if I watch Democracy Now and it's news and stories. I could I watch you and then it seems like also news as well, but then it's music.
Yeah, yeah, it's very much like, well, as Amy Goodman once said about my music, it's like democracy now in musical form or something like that, she said. Yeah.
Yes. Did you perform at their stage at some of their programs? You know, they have this little studio that musicians play, and you probably were there a couple of times, right? I don't
I
watch
was a very
everything.
regular, I was a regular guest on Democracy Now
Uh-huh.
25, 26 years ago, but
Oh.
they rarely have musical guests, and they haven't had me on the show for many, many years.
Mhm.
And I think partly that's because I've criticized their music breaks, because the vast majority of their music breaks were number one hits, and
Oh.
mostly by dead artists, which and everything is I don't have any problem with number one hits or dead artists, but I think the fact that 83% of their music breaks, according to my study of 110 episodes, were number one artists, more than half of whom were dead. And I think for an independent news show that's, really trying to shed light on current events, and then I think it really would make a lot more sense for them to play current artists who are writing about the things that they're doing stories about, but they hardly ever do that.
Mm. Well, who knows? Hopefully, in the future they will.
Maybe
Mhm.
I
Let
won't hold my breath.
Do you know people who have suffered through Gaza? You tell vivid stories, or you watch news reports? What inspires you? You're very passionate about the about this issue. Have you ever been there?
I've been to the occupied West Bank, and I tried to get to Gaza while I was in the Middle East 21 years ago, but they wouldn't let us in.
Hmm.
The Israelis wouldn't let us in.
Hmm.
But I know a lot of Palestinians, and I've been involved with the Palestine Solidarity Movement since 2000, and so I've been very much in touch with a lot of people since all the horrible events of the Israeli genocide had began in terms of their, full-scale war on the population of Gaza, starting in October 2023. Um, but yeah, I watch a lot of news, and I follow a lot of Middle Eastern media.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, and then it's just so overwhelming, for all of us who care about humanity to watch this live streamed genocide. And yeah, I don't know how other people deal with it, but for me, I write a lot of songs about it, and that's otherwise I would just go crazy. I don't know. I don't know what I'd do.
What do your fans tell you about what is their response to this set of songs, the Gaza songs?
They're going over very well. They've gotten a lot of positive attention from my fans, and I've made a lot of new fans as well. I mean, actually, 10% of my following on X are from Yemen,
Oh,
and that's all very recent. That started after I wrote songs about Yemen, in 2020, the fall of 2023.
wow, that's a lot. 10% from Yemen. Okay.
Yeah, because the director of the main television station there, he was promoting my music, and he's got a lot of followers.
Oh, very, very good.
Yeah, in countries like that, they really promote music that's part of the movement. That's like in solidarity with the Palestinians, and with what the Ansar Allah is doing to try to stop the Israeli arms shipments. I mean, they really play music about that, like Arabic music, but um, so for them discovering my music, it was just like, oh, great, there's people singing about this stuff in English too, they were people were very excited. It's so humbling, and such an honor to be like discovered by random people from Yemen who have never knew that people were writing about this kind of stuff in the English language. And
Mhm.
yeah, I was doing a lot of corresponding with people from Yemen who also didn't speak English, so we were doing a lot of Google Translate, back and forth, translating messages. But the Yemenis speak, and they use a lot of religious allegories, so then even translating what they're saying, I still didn't understand. I had to consult the Bible, or actually somebody who had read it, more than I did, to, like, what does he mean? Moses was raised by the pharaohs. Like, how is that related to me? And but then I realized, oh, this is a tremendous compliment. I just had to figure out what they were talking about.
Mhm. Wow. In other words, it's idioms, the
Yeah,
different, yes.
yeah, different idioms that I was not familiar with. Yes.
So they don't speak English, but they love your songs. Is it that they know what you're writing about, or they like the music? Do you know what it is that they admire about your songs if they don't speak English?
In this case, it was the TV director was sharing a version of the song that had Arabic subtitles. And
Ah,
there's also a lot of subtitling platforms that are very popular in the Arab world, and that do a really great job of translating and making Arab subtitles, and also English subtitles. But I discovered these subtitling apps from the Yemenis who were
oh,
using them a lot. Yeah.
awesome, awesome. So of all your songs, do you have any favorite ones?
I I mean, I guess I don't really, but I'm always excited to find when a song becomes popular in some community. So, and those are always my favorite. I mean, and it's not necessarily the song that's my favorite so much as just the effect that it's had, and the numbers of different people I've met because of particular songs. And it's an amazing thing that can happen when you write a song about some popular struggle that people are involved with, and then people involved with that struggle hear your song, and they feel so validated, and they're moved by the song about them, and then they want to meet me, and then that's just an amazing process. So I just love writing songs about other people's struggles, that they find, moving, and that, they really, and then connecting with them because of the songs. It's a
Such
great
as
job.
yes, such as your song about the rent. That's so that reaches almost everyone, except the 1%, but everybody's
Right.
affected by that. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Like certainly for the bottom 80% of society, housing is just really either unaffordable or very difficult to afford. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think definitely the bottom 80% tends to really relate to those songs about landlords and then people the higher you go within the top quintile, the more people are less comfortable with those songs. Yeah.
Yes. What about I'm a better anarchist than you? What about that song? How did you come to write that one?
So I mean, that's one of those songs I'm so glad about writing because, I mean, it is probably my most popular song on Spotify and on YouTube.
Mm.
And I wrote it originally because of having just a really annoying experience with some holier than thou, preachy, condescending young anarchists. And I wrote this song about them as a satire, and I really was worried that I'd alienate a lot of them. But I found out that almost all of them had a really good sense of humor. And when I wrote the song, people appreciated it and they thought it was funny, and very few people were offended by it. So that was a very interesting experience. And then to know that, a lot of people who have been, sort of had a lot to do with young people on the left today, they might think a lot of them are very, can be very preachy about using the right words, and there's a lot of word policing going on, and a lot of kind of puritanical behavior. But it is that young left-wing crowd that are the biggest fans of that song. So I think it says a lot of positive things about the youth today that they like that song so much.
Mm. Did you find that any of the progressives or the left were offended by it?
Yeah, but only about like a dozen people. I mean, really, I have, there's just out of the many, many thousands of people, saying great things about the song and liking it and sharing it, there are maybe in the low dozens of leftists who find it offensive. But
That's
I
very
think
true.
they're generally people without a sense of humor.
So how long did it take you to write it, and what caused you to write that song?
Oh, it was I mean it was a particular experience that I don't want to
Okay.
name the people,
Yes,
but
definitely
it
no.
was a particular experience with a crowd of young people in a collective who were all, thought they knew everything and that I was being bourgeois because I mean I had driven hundreds of miles to play a gig for free and my only requirement was that I have my own room to sleep in because I needed to get a good night's sleep because I had a long drive the next day. But
Yes.
then word got out, I think, that I was demanding my own room to sleep in. And then it was just like, I could tell everybody was like looking at me like I was some kind of like bourgeois sellout or something, And I thought, oh my gosh, this is just ridiculous. What is going on here? And then after the gig, the next day after that gig, I wrote the song.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess you have to thank them for being that way because that is such a beautiful
Yeah,
song.
definitely have to thank them. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Um, is there any song that you ever regretted writing?
Yes, I regret. I mean, like it's kind of like too late after you write a song and it's out there and recorded. So I mean, I haven't tried to like take any song off of the streaming platforms or something, but I do somewhat regret writing the song Vanguard because I wrote it, I guess, sometime around maybe before I wrote I'm a Better Anarchist Than You, but it's more rather than about the anarchists, it's more about the socialists and the more sectarian ones. But I found that with that song, I really offended quite a few wonderful people that I know, and I really felt bad about writing the song because I didn't mean to offend them. I was actually just trying to make a joke about some of the more sectarian tendencies within some of the socialist parties, but I definitely hurt some feelings with that one. And unlike with I'm a Better Anarchist Than You, I do feel Like I must have missed the mark with that one because it didn't work. It didn't work the way I was hoping it would. So yeah, probably regret writing that one. There's probably a couple others, but mostly I don't. I only think that some of the songs I've written are not very good. So I only regret kind of putting them out there because if I were sort of policing my songs now, a lot of the older ones they would not have made the cut. I wouldn't have put them on a CD. But that's how it is. You get older, hopefully you get better, and then you start, cringing at some of your earlier work. But I think that's pretty universal experience.
But that's okay. You're learning, and then of course in the future you'll be writing better songs. That's what's important, and you're enjoying.
Yeah, it is a process for sure. Yeah,
What
and
does
I
it
think I'm
take?
getting better.
I think so too. For instance, the Insurrection Act and Song of Tomorrow, those two were
Mhm.
so recent, and I just kept listening to them. I couldn't really stop
Mhm.
listening
Great.
to it. Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
What about when you what is the tipping point? Let's say you hear about an issue. Do you think about writing a song right away, or is there some kind of tipping point that causes you? I have to write the song.
It's like basically it could be an issue that I think is really, really important, or it could be something that I don't think is important. But what the common thing is that it's something that I think is worth writing about, and I have an idea for the hook line, that some kind of an idea for the chorus, something that holds it all together. And it's often just like one line, there's something like that I think of, and then the song can fall together really easily. But the hardest part is having the theme, having that one concept of a few words that kind of like crystallizes what you're trying to say. So it kind of makes it all work. I find that's the hardest part, but it seems like the easiest part in a way, but it's also the hardest part.
Mhm.
But writing the verses, I find to be that's easy. You just tell the story once you know what story you're trying to tell and what's your angle for telling the story. But the hook line is what really makes it hold together, and that can be the most elusive part. So that's where it starts. If I have a good hook line, the rest follows.
So the hook line is usually that one sentence or two that you repeat throughout the song.
Yeah,
Yes, I've
exactly.
noticed that.
Yeah.
It's very affecting. The I can't remember which one it is, but I heard one today, and it was very sad and very gripping. The hook line that you find.
No, thank you.
Okay, so you were very young, and then you what did you write any songs before writing these protest songs? What did you write before all this?
I pretty much when I started writing songs, I was already very politically oriented. I was already very much part of the far left, I guess, and so I that's those are the kinds of songs I wanted to write from the beginning. And I wrote a lot of really bad songs when I was younger, and they were very kind of preachy, hitting people over the head with my politics.
Mhm.
And then I got better at it over time and started learning that the best way to write a song that they might call a protest song is actually not to tell people what you think or what you feel. So in that way, it's not like what a lot of people might think of as a protest song, because people think about protest songs as a song where we're telling people what we think, what we like, what we don't like, and but mostly those are the bad protest songs. The good protest songs actually don't aren't really easily identifiable as protest songs because really they're just stories. I'm mostly just telling stories,
Mhm.
and the stories are about very political events. So they're definitely like very political stories. So people will naturally call it protest songs because that's what they understand it's called when you write about political things. But the term protest song was a term that the mainstream media first invented. I mean, nobody called themselves a protest singer until the media started calling people protest singers. It's just like other terms, like the term hippie. Nobody on the left or part of the sort of counterculture, called themselves hippies, and also the counterculture. That term was also invented by the media. People called themselves other things that were more, descriptive of what they were doing. But it's of course they have to come up with words to describe things, and the words are not always the best ones, but they are the ones that we learn and we get used to. So I I
Yes,
also call myself a protest singer.
yeah, and those are their hooks. You've got your hooking line. That's theirs.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Do you think you could tell us about YouTube, how they took you down, and how were you able to come back if you're able to talk about it?
Oh yeah, yeah, happily. Yeah, so after, I mean, I've been targeted for cancellation by various groups who try to get all my gigs canceled and call me all sorts of names. They call me a Nazi, Nazi sympathizer, an anti-Semite, transphobe. All those are the main ones. But it's all none of it is true. But these are the things they say, and this has been going on for 24 years. Ever since I started writing about Israel and Palestine. There have been people who have lost their jobs for playing my music, and it's but with October 2023, it all got much, much more hardcore with the efforts to cancel me, and it became a much more. It wasn't just fringe groups trying to do it; it was much more well-funded mainstream pro-Israel groups like UK Lawyers for Israel is the main one that's constantly going after me, trying to get all my gigs canceled, and so I think they were involved with reporting different songs that violated the UK's Terrorism Act or various UK laws around terrorism. The UK has much weaker laws around speech than the US does. So even though, like in the US, you can get into all kinds of trouble, like in all kinds of ways, especially if you spend money that they say is money that is going to support a terrorist group. They might be just money that is going to buy food for hungry children in Gaza, but if the money went through some, it was touched by the hands of some member of Hamas, then they'll say, oh, you're supporting terrorism. So with spending money, um, if you're from the US and you're trying to be doing something useful, spending money is a very dangerous thing to do because of the way the laws are.
Mhm.
But usually saying what you think is accepted. If you're a citizen, saying what you think is you can do that in the US mostly. Of
Mhm.
course, if you're a non-citizen, they'll deport you. Now, as we all know, for all the Palestine solidarity organizers, if they're not citizens, they get deported, right? But for at least for citizens, we still have the First Amendment in the US, and it more or less works for many of us. But in the UK, they don't have a First Amendment, and there's a law that says if you praise a proscribed organization, then you're breaking UK law and you could face 14 years in prison.
Oh,
So my songs, I support Palestine Action, and my song for the Houthi army. I have other songs that are expressing positive things about proscribed organizations like the Houthis, like the Ansar Allah, or like Palestine Action, which is now declared a terrorist organization in the UK, even though they've never hurt anybody. They've only destroyed, military equipment, but they're called terrorists now. So if you say I support Palestine Action, you're breaking the law.
mm,
So I think it was basically, they started striking, getting different songs struck off of YouTube, and then so I had a lot of those. And then one day when I put up a particular song, uh, within a few minutes of, or maybe an hour of putting that song up, I got a notification saying, this is your first strike, and then we're canceling your page. Like usually you're supposed to get three strikes, but with this one they broke their own rules and said you got your first strike, and now we're deleting your channel.
wow.
So they deleted the channel, and then and this they had already deleted without even telling me. They had already deleted all of my albums from YouTube Music, and YouTube Music is the second biggest streaming platform in the in the world outside China, basically
Mm.
after Spotify, right? And so it's a huge platform that they took all of my albums off of. But then the next month they deleted my channel. But what happened then after that was on the advice of a young Palestine solidarity activist named Guy Christensen, I he told me make a portrait framed captioned video that's less than 2 minutes long, explaining what happened and what people should do about it. And I did that, and it got 140,000 views in a day, and then I heard from YouTube, and a lot of people canceled their YouTube Premium accounts
Mm.
and said they were doing it because of their taking my channel away.
Mm.
And basically, very quickly, I got an email from YouTube saying, "We have reconsidered your permanent ban." And they put my channel back, and then the next month they put all my albums back.
Oh.
But I'm definitely not getting much attention on YouTube. I get much more videos streamed on Facebook and Instagram than on YouTube. But these days, it used to be different. But at least I'm back, on YouTube, even if I think, very suppressed on the channel
So right now
on that
you're
platform.
getting fewer views because of some algorithm that YouTube put in that's limiting your reach.
I'm sure that's true,
Oh,
yes, but I don't have any evidence, because
yeah.
their algorithms are completely opaque. I just know that I'll put up a video on like the past couple weeks. I'll put up a video that'll get, 50,000 views on Instagram, 50,000 views on Facebook, and it'll get maybe 150 on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is. Also, TikTok, especially since the Ellisons bought TikTok, views have gone way down. I used to get more attention on TikTok. Yeah.
Wow. Did you ever get calls any threatening calls because of your work?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of trolling. Like one month, I got 27,000 insults from trolls on Facebook in
Mm-hmm.
1 month. So like, there's troll farms that are working to, attack me all the time. So, there are people who are obviously getting paid to do this. It's not like people are doing it because they actually care about attacking me. There's this clearly paid troll farms where you get inundated with thousands and thousands of horrible, insulting comments, but they're doing this on commission.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and so they often involve threats to things like talking about how I should be killed, and there's a lot of that, yeah, every day.
Hmm. What do you think in your music is so moving? It's the lyrics are beautiful. The music is beautiful. Is it the whole package that they dislike because it affects so many people? What do you think is setting them off? There are a lot of people that protest too. I don't know if those people get the uh, attacks, but I don't know if you were able to talk with your fellow artists. Do they get as attacked as you?
Mostly they don't, and the ones who do are very specifically artists that are very critical of Israel.
Mhm.
It's really it's like, I don't want to be promoting any ideas about, grand conspiracies, but it really feels like a very big conspiracy, I mean, it is just the power that the pro-Israel crowd seems to have over this government and the UK government and the German government and a lot of other governments is really distressing and bizarre for this little country to have so much influence over all these other countries. Uh, it's really strange, but yeah, it's only artists that are pro-Palestinian and calling out Israel for the criminal enterprise that it is, the terrorist state that it is, but because the Israelis have long understood the power of of storytelling and of a good narrative, and they've been working very hard to shape the narrative that they want to put out there about what Israel is and who they represent. And so when they want to put themselves out there as a progressive country that represents the world's Jews, but it's a fascist country that doesn't represent anybody but people that want to steal someone else's land. And most Jews don't want anything to do with Israel in the world, in actuality. But they so their whole narrative is full of you know garbage. But and they know the power of music and culture and storytelling. That's why they have a history of killing poets and journalists and writers. I mean, there's a long list of Palestinian poets, journalists, and writers that have been intentionally killed by Israeli forces because they're too threatened by uh, good storytellers that are going to be able to tell a totally different narrative and make it really clearly, clear why it's so true. So they really work hard to suppress careers of people like me. And if you're, unlucky enough to be a Palestinian author or musician or journalist, then the consequences are far worse than career suppression. Then you just get a drone shot to the head
Mhm.
in so many cases. I mean, they've killed how many? It's like I think over 300 journalists
Right.
just since October 2023, and
Mhm.
that's I mean not counting all the writers and poets and others that they've also assassinated. But you
Uh,
know,
well, then I guess they do see the power of art, that it really,
yeah,
mhm,
yeah, they do.
mhm,
Yeah, and for that matter, any good ruler or anybody running a country, anybody running a corporation, anybody running a military, they all understand the power of art and culture. I mean, the American left doesn't understand the power of art or culture anymore. We've had that, you know, somehow, we've been convinced somehow or another that music is frivolous, and if we want to be serious, we can't be, singing together and all this kind of stuff. We've gotten very confused in this country, but most of the world, the left knows that music and art is the centerpiece, the heart, the beating heart of the resistance. You go anywhere around most of the world and you ask people, what's the what's the beating heart of the resistance of your social movement? And people will say right away, music, culture, art, we need it. That's what brings us all together. It's the glue that holds us together. But every corporation also knows that. There's not a corporation probably anywhere in the world that hasn't used a jingle to sell a product, right? There's
mhm,
no military in the world that doesn't have songs that the soldiers sing together as they're training or going into battle. I mean, this is universal.
mhm,
Everybody understands how powerful music and culture is.
mhm. Okay. So that's why they're afraid of you then, because you do hit the sweet spot oftentimes, and you affect a lot of people. Mm, okay.
Yeah, that's what I like to think. That's what I imagine is going on, and it's true. I mean, there are objective ways to say that, you're right. I mean, when you put out a video and it gets 50,000 views, and of that 2,000 people have shared the thing, that tells you something. There's ways you can see, like, yeah, this is really, people are really responding to this. And I mean, of course, the best way is when you're at a show and you sing a song
Mm,
that's a sad song about some terrible thing and that happened in Gaza, and you see half your audience is crying by the end of it, then yeah, okay, this worked. That's definitely a good song. It's a sad song. It's supposed to make people cry, and they're crying. I can see it. That's it's terrible thing to say, but that's how it's working.
what about those songs that you remember where your audience cried? When you wrote those songs, did you cry?
Yeah, I cry so many. I can't get through a lot of these songs for the first few dozen times that I'm singing them. But once I have sung it a lot, then I usually don't cry while I'm singing the song.
Mhm.
You can't sing very well while you're crying, you know. So it's best to just let the audience do the crying and not not be the one crying on stage. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
impossible to avoid, but yeah, usually I've gotten all the crying out before I actually sing the song in public.
Mhm. Have you ever wrote any song about the mass incarceration? You probably have. I missed those. But I do want if you have, give me the title so I could find them.
Oh gosh, yeah, I've written songs um, about mass incarceration, but more in the context of specific prisoners. Songs about prisoners. Um, yeah, and maybe songs that reference mass incarceration, but yeah, not really a song that's just about the phenomenon of mass incarceration. That would be a fine song to write. If you have an idea for a hook line, let me know.
Well,
But
I do.
you
I've
know,
been researching because I'm on on this station, and then I've been researching some news. I had a guest tell me that pr police unions they invest in private prisons too. So, and that's very profitable for them. So maybe that causes mass incarceration. So I did come across the two reports where they said that a lot of these retirement funds invest in private prisons, and they should stop because
mm,
they're too reliant on policy and governments that could change and that might affect their beneficiaries, etc. The trustees a decision to invest in those private prisons could affect their beneficiaries, but of course that's the underlying probably reason for mass incarceration because of how much is invested in them.
yeah, that kind of corruption is so terrifying to know that you're living in a country where the system is about money and it's about who has the money and who's bribing the politicians to do this and that and and it's not about actually, you know, helping anybody. It's just about filling the prisons with more people so that you can make more money from putting them, you know, keeping them in prison. That's just a terrifying reality here. It's as is mass incarceration, and of course, you know, mass incarceration is the solution that the U.S. Leaders turned to as a alternative to slavery after slavery ended. You know, I mean, we've been a system based on mass incarceration of particularly black and brown people ever since the end of slavery, and that was all very intentional. You know, the history is all very clear that you know that this was how they were going to get people to work in the cotton fields. You
Mhm.
know, and they did. I mean, one of the most shocking realities is the Angola penitentiary in Louisiana. Um, I guess named after the country of Angola, which is appropriate because, of course, the overwhelming majority of people there are black in the prison.
Mhm.
And before it was a prison, it was a cotton plantation, and uh, and and they had 5,000 black men picking cotton by hand.
Mhm.
And now that it's a prison, they have 5,000 black men picking cotton by hand.
Wow.
And you know, the only thing that's changed is it's now they're in prison instead of, you know, confined by force to a plantation, and you know, they're paid 2 cents an hour. You know.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, it's so when you read these stories and learn about them, that you're on the song right away. It doesn't really take long, does it?
Yeah, they're I you know I've thought about the Angola Penitentiary so many times. I don't know why I haven't written a song about it. It's such an obvious thing to write. This just that thing about the same number of people
Right.
picking cotton, you know,
Mhm.
now and before. I mean, I'm sure there must be something I could do with that as to for a
Yes.
hook line, you know. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I believe in you.
Thank you.
So, what new issues right now? Are there any new issues that you're concerned about?
Well, lately I've been writing a lot about the U.S. Israeli war on Iran, and I've written other songs about Iran in the past, but I've been especially inspired to be writing more about Iran and Iranian history and what the reality of Iran today, and because there's just incredible amounts of misinformation, disinformation about Iran in the U.S. and in the West generally. It's just you just repeat lies over and over enough times, and people start believing it. But you can hear on national public radio or MSNBC or Fox or whatever, you can hear people saying the same thing over and over again. Every military general or pundit they have on will say things like, well, Iran has been supporting terrorism for the past 47 years. They'll say this over and over. None of them will ever tell you one event involving the mass casualties of civilians, which is usually what we mean when we talk about terrorism, right? No, none of them can ever say what Iran ever did with regards to, the mass casualty events involving civilians, because there are none, because Iran doesn't do that and never has under the revolution, since the revolution. That's just not part of their, what they do. They have certainly supported a lot of resistance movements against occupations, like in Lebanon and in among the Palestinians in Iraq and Yemen. But that is not terrorism. That is, under according to the United Nations, resistance to occupation is not terrorism. So all these people who are saying, Iran has been supporting terrorism, they're lying, and it's not true. And there's many other things they say about Iran that are not true. There were not 42,000 people killed in these protests. A lot of those protests were not protests. They were people with guns given to them by the United States who were killing Iranian police, 100 of whom were killed during these so-called protests. I mean, another thing they never tell you is the woman life freedom movement, where women were demanding they didn't want to wear, head coverings.
Mhm.
Nobody talks about, in the West, they don't talk about what happened with that movement. They don't talk about it because it's not convenient for them, because the movement won. Because, you go to Tehran today and you see women without head coverings all over the place. It's impossible to not notice that there's so many women going around without head coverings. Why? Because they won. Because the religious police are not harassing people for not wearing head coverings anymore. They went home, or they sent them somewhere else. They're not doing that anymore. You know, they don't tell you that
Right.
movements can win in places like Iran. It's not a just totally autocratic country where nobody has the freedom to dissent. That's not actually accurate. Of course, if your idea of dissenting is organizing a armed uprising, well, yeah, you're going to have problems with that in any country.
Mhm.
But
Wow. Okay. Yeah, the narrative, it's always, yeah, the narrative is usually not what it seems, not what they give you.
no,
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
Is it hard for you to see through it? Do you have to do research, or do you have a gut feeling? Do you talk with people? How do you manage? Because sometimes it's a fine line too.
Yeah, it's difficult, and I think, I mean, it's one thing is it's important never to just trust any source just because you want to. I mean, the I think in order to understand anything about the world around us or history, historical events, the best way to do it is to shine a light on the subject from as many different angles as possible.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, you're in a dark room, and in the middle of the room, there's this object, and you don't know what it is, and you just shine one flashlight at it, and you're going to see it from a certain angle, and you might not even know what it is. But once you shine two or three or four or five more lights from different angles, then you start, seeing the three dimensionality of whatever it is. And,
Mhm.
that's how you can understand the world. And also, what is the bias of the different media networks that you're paying attention to from whatever country. You don't rely on Al Jazeera for telling you anything honest about what's happening in Qatar, right? I mean, it's a Qatari network, so of course they're going to say whatever, but that's true of most of the mainstream networks from around the world. Like the last thing you want to rely on them for is coverage of their own country. It's just, but Al Jazeera does great coverage about the United States. So there, you can see a lot of great exposés on corruption in the U.S. and poverty in the U.S. But you won't generally see a lot about the mistreatment of foreign workers in the Gulf states. A little bit, but that's an issue they'll tend to underplay. And lately, a lot of their coverage about Iran is very, very negative, and that's not surprising given that they're hosting U.S. military bases that are being bombed by Iran. It's they chose their side a long time ago, so it's not surprising that the coverage would be from a certain angle. But if there's a lot of good journalism going on in Iran as well. And the Iranian journalists are a very, very valuable source of information about what's happening in Iran. But you can't just rely on them. You need to you know, also see what the other folks who are there are saying. There's a lot of journalists from around the world who are currently in Iran reporting from Iran. It's the American networks will say things like, "Oh, it's we can't really get somebody in there to do journalism. It's too dangerous," or you can't really contact the Iranians because they don't have access to the internet. And I mean, it's just all nonsense. I'm in touch with Iranians, every day in Iran. They have access to the internet. I mean, I don't know how hard it is for them to get it, or yeah, of course it gets shut down, and GPS gets shut down, of course, because the U.S. is using that to kill people. So there's a lot of problems with the internet when it comes to wars, and of course it has to get shut down, and for all kinds of reasons having to do with information warfare and how much information they can get by the internet being on, about the targets they're bombing and all that stuff. It's complicated, but you can get real information out of Iran for sure, and you can talk to people there.
Do you ever get tips? Do people come to you with tips about something that's going on so that you could look into it and maybe write a song about it?
Yeah, and that's how I end up writing a lot of songs, and it's wonderful because people just find out, like, they know, they either know my music or they hear about me, and they know that it would be helpful to have a song about this issue that they're campaigning on, and they'll ask me if I would speak out about this issue, and they usually don't ask me if I'll write a song about it, and I think they're too shy, but I know, of course, when they're saying, "Will you speak out about this issue?" that the best thing I could do is write a song about it. So that's what I usually try to do when people are asking me about that kind of thing. And then people also, they know that I'm a fan of history, and so they'll just tell me about some story that they figure I probably don't know about, and about history, usually from their country or their neighborhood or something that's not a big famous story, but it's the kind of, so that's, yeah, that kind of thing happens a lot, and
So
that's
is there any song that I could listen to that derives something like that?
oh sure, like just I guess it was a month ago or 2 months ago, 2 months, something like that. There was a guy in Pakistan with the Awami Action Committee named Ehsan Ali. He was arrested and brutalized and imprisoned for being the leader of the Awami Action Committee, and then folks supporting the movement there from many different countries were really mobilized, and I heard from one day I heard from five different people asking me if I would get involved, and so of course it was easy to say yes, and I read up about what was happening, and about what was going on with Ehsan Ali, and I wrote a song about it. And so, yeah, that's yeah. Just the other day, last week, I was visiting a friend in Bellingham, Dana Lyons, and he was talking about a campaign he's involved with to get the nuclear waste in Los Alamos stored more securely, not in barrels covered by canvas in the desert, waiting for a fire to come, but keep them underground in more secure places. And so I wrote a song about that for that campaign. So yeah, I do that kind of thing a lot, and it's always gratifying when the people involved with the campaign actually understand the value of what you've just done and actually use the song to as part of the campaign rather than just saying thanks and you know that's it. Sometimes the song only gets out there at all because I'm putting it out there, and that's okay. But if the campaign is also putting it out there, it'll have a lot more uh, success.
Was that Song for Tomorrow that you mentioned? Is that the one that with the story about that man that was brutalized?
Oh no, the song about him is called Song for Ehsan Ali.
Oh,
Um, so yeah, and that's on the what album is that on now? That's on it's on the one that's coming up on August 1st. It's called All the Writing on the Wall, and it'll be out on the streaming platforms in a few days. It's on Bandcamp now, but it'll be on Spotify and such on
wow,
August 1st.
nice. Wow. So you have this you have a lot of melodies. You have your form. Did you ever break away from that form? I haven't found something that's like a little different, a lot different. Now, I'm just talking about like majorly different, like a big shift. Ha has that ever happened in your career?
I would say it has, but I think with a lot of different things, like I mean, basically with any kind of music, if people are not familiar with a particular genre, whatever it might be, then what people will tend to say is, "Oh, it all sounds the same," right? I mean, if you have no familiarity with, you know, whatever it is, Arabic classical music or bluegrass or, orchestral, romantic, classical whatever it is, whatever kind of music, if you're not familiar with it, you hear any kind of classical music with an orchestra and it just sounds like a bunch of violins making noise. Like, you gotta tune into it, right? To understand it. And anything you're not familiar with, all sounds the same, or just like, people you're not familiar with all, maybe look the same, until you get to know people and oh, they're all individuals. Everybody's different. I mean, this is so with music, if you're into a certain style, as I have often been into different musical styles, then people who are not into it think, oh, well, that song sounds just like the last one. But people who are into it, they think each song sounds very different.
It does
So,
sound
I
very
mean,
different.
there's that.
You have your style, but each song is very different. I'm surprised that you could make so many different songs. It's not easy, but
Oh, thank
you
you.
have such a talent to do it.
I really try. I know that because people often say they talk about my lyrics because it's the music is very political and that's what makes it unusual, right? So, but they don't. They talk less about the music, but the music is so important to be able to carry the lyrics. The music really needs to be fresh and not sound like something you just heard somewhere else.
Uh,
And that's a challenge. That's the biggest challenge I find to come up with fresh music. And so yeah, I've gone through different phases of getting into different styles, partly because I like the style I was just getting into, like when I discovered punk rock, for example, and started changing how I was playing guitar for a while. And I discovered hip hop, and I started doing different kinds of music, different kinds of vocal delivery, you know. So it changes, but it still sounds like me, I think. But I think you can see in different albums that I've been influenced by different kinds of styles at that time, and it changes over time, and that's definitely intentional, and it's important to keep on shaking it up.
do you, did you ever get voice lessons? Because you're always touring, and that takes a big toll on your voice. Do you have a coach? Do you have someone taking care of your voice so that you don't hurt it or lose it?
No, but I did have some voice lessons when I was younger. My stepmother is an opera singer,
Oh,
and
that helps.
so yeah, but I never. It's mostly just how my own. I mean, I'm mostly really kind of doing it's bluegrass is more the influence, but um, but I find if you sing the right way and you're not straining your voice like doing some of the things like heavy metal singers do that ruins their throats. If you're
Mhm.
singing in a more natural way, sort of more like bluegrass style, I think it's really easy on your throat. And if you stay healthy, I used to play music in the subways, so every day I would sing for 4 hours until my voice was gone, you know. And after having a lot of years of practice doing that, touring and playing concerts seems really easy because I'm never playing for 4 hours. You know, when I'm playing concert tours, it's the concerts are 2 hours, you know, so I still have lots of voice left, you know, by the end of it. You know. I could do two concerts in one day and I'm still fine. You know, it's still much easier than it was when I was playing in the subways.
What was the breakthrough from to help you break away from the subways and still could make a living?
It was I mean I had started writing songs about political stuff and I had an old friend who I had often seen when he'd come around. Robert White was his name, and he was a songwriter in the same kind of vein as me at the time, writing a lot of stuff about environmental issues, especially, and I was too back in the '90s.
Mhm.
And so one day, you know, Robert said, "Well, you know that." He said, "Well, I've been trying to get you to come on tour with me and play bass and sing harmonies." And you know, he then made that offer once again, as he would like every year when I'd see him, and I'd always have some kind of excuse like,
Mhm.
"No, you
Too
know,
busy.
busy or whatever." But then once I started writing songs more myself, I realized this was a golden opportunity, and so I went on tour with him. I learned all his songs and was playing bass and singing harmonies, but he was also having me open for him and do
Mhm.
my own songs opening for him.
Mhm.
And those opening sets to going on tour with him was just the ticket. It was just amazing. Everywhere I went, I was playing for these audiences that were then wanting to book me next time I was coming around. So, I
Uh,
mean, I just totally benefited from his audience. It became my audience. You know, that was how it started.
wow, congratulations about that. That's yeah, that was
It's the
lucky,
way to
and of
go.
course you worked hard for it too.
Yeah, I mean, the ticket for me was like I could play bass and sing harmonies, right? So he would have had no particular reason to just take me on the road to open for him, but
Mhm.
I was on the road to play with him, you know. So the
Mhm.
opening thing was just gravy, you know. So
Yes.
that was, you know, then, but with the record labels, that's how they operate. That's always how they introduce a new band. If they've signed a new band to the label, then the way they get that band known is by having them tour with a more well-known band and open for that band. So
Oh,
that's how the record labels do it, and whether you're on a label or not, the same thing works. You know, you just have to figure out if you're just starting out as a musician, figure out you know what musician you can tour with and open for, and then figure out how to make yourself useful for that band so that they want to have you open for them. And of
mhm.
course, one way is to be on the same record label, but if that's not the situation, you got to, you know, like do what I did and you know be useful by being able to back somebody up, you know,
Mhm.
and play with them, not just open for them.
Wow. Okay. Very nice. So you did open and then you actually played too. You got the opportunity to open. Yes, was led to.
Yeah, yeah, because I was playing with him,
Mhm.
because I was his band. I mean, I was, you
Wow.
know, it was a duo, you know, so I was playing bass guitar and singing harmonies and making his act, you know, more interesting that way. You know.
Mhm. Yes. If our viewers want to learn more about you, David Rowick, and to see and hear your music, where should they go?
Oh, they can go to davidrovics.com as one place, and they can find my essays. I put them out on Substack, and I put out new music on Substack. So if they want to get sign on to my newsletter, they can find me on Substack,
Okay.
Patreon, and all the streaming platforms.
I did forget to ask you about your podcast about the history of the world according to David Rovics, something like that.
Uh-huh.
I was
Yeah.
listening and listening. It was mostly talking, not much music there, right? Or the
Oh,
music come
I'm
later.
glad you think so because no, there's a lot of music, but
Oh,
it's about maybe about three quarters talking and one quarter music, something like that.
oh,
But
okay, got it.
I'm each songs are interspersed throughout the whole thing. There's hundreds of songs in the 16 hours and 150 songs or something. I can't remember, but yeah. And it's yeah, basically a history of the world according to the songs I've written about different subjects over the past, there was songs about history. Because I've written a lot about history, and I just thought one day I should just string this all together into a long podcast and, to introduce people to all these different historical events. And I think it's a very good introduction to a lot of history because I
Yes.
don't go into great detail with stuff, but enough detail that people can get a good introduction to a lot of different things.
Hmm. Yes. And you are a history buff. Do you want to like find the truth behind what you read, right? Like what you know now, is it much different, a lot different from what you learned in grade school?
Yeah, I mean, especially, I mean, I went to an alternative hippie grade school, so I did, it was much more interesting. But I went to public school for junior high and high school, and I studied history. And yeah, everything I learned after that was very much in contradiction to what I was learning in high school. But I discovered historians like Howard Zinn and
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy Brecker and authors like Naomi Klein, a lot of people like that pretty early on. So I got started getting a good education from outside of school.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes the learning behind beyond the book learning is very, very important.
Yeah, and book learning, that's books that they don't
Uh,
share in school too. But yeah, learning from traveling and seeing the world is really important too. I mean, I think particularly for, I mean, any country, there's a lot of brainwashing that goes on one way or another, and it's always very useful to leave whatever country you grew up in and see other countries, even if it's just like leaving the US to go to Canada. I mean, you think it's not a big move, but it's like it's a different country. There's a lot of different stuff going on there, and anything you do, just even just going from the US to England, you might think that's not that different, but it is, and there's a lot of different contradictions in other societies. They have different contradictions. It's not like paradise, but they
mhm.
don't have the same problems that the US has. They have different problems and maybe fewer problems, but so it's just it's great education, I think, for anybody from wherever you're from. Best thing you can do is at least spend a few months somewhere else outside of your country, visiting any other country, and you're going to get a lot of education about where you grew up, and you'll figure out stuff about your own home that you never would have figured out if you had just stayed home.
Right. I let's see. There was one more important question. Um, if you, because a lot of your songs, you want change. Let's say you hold a position of power now, and you could make some change. What would be something that you would change immediately? Your first item on the list.
Oh, if I could just pass a law and change things and with
Yes.
something
What
like
those?
that.
Yes. Well, yes. If you were an elected official, yeah, and you could do something, what would you do if you held the position?
I
Let's.
guess the first thing I would do is I'd pass a law like the one they have in Denmark, where if you own a house, you have to live in it, and you can only own one.
Oh, okay.
I think that would totally transform this society
Mm-hmm.
because this society is so much based on real estate speculation and speculation on the housing market and using housing as a form of investment. And this country is so divided between people with money and people without money,
Mm-hmm.
and people who own expensive houses and people who don't own anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's and it's just getting worse all the time. It's
So in
been
other
bad
words,
for a long time, but
yes.
that's the first thing I'd do. Yeah, I'd pass a housing law that says, you know, everybody should own a house and nobody should own two until everybody owns one.
Wow, that is very, very true because then the whole housing supply would increase.
Yeah,
That's what's
vastly.
really, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, David Rovics, thank you so much for joining us and much luck to you in your future albums and let's talk again soon.
I hope so. Thanks. It's been really great pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, David.